Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the Pantheon Rise of the Falling stream hosted by CohhCarnage. The footage is captured from Cohh's stream on December 9th, 2016. I will have all pertinent links to the Pantheon Rise of the Fallen in the published section below so you guys can get more detailed information, and you can click on this annotation to see previous channel coverage pertaining to the game world, characters, classes, and map. The guys played for several hours, and there were a lot of questions posed to the team. Many of them existing fans are familiar with. However, we also have some new information to share, so if you're new to Pantheon or my channel, we'll be covering those topics in this segment. Right off the bat, we can see that the team has been hard at work on the character models as well as the overall graphics. We also got our first look at the Shaman Class and the Gnome character. It's really quite impressive what we were able to gather from today's gameplay. And of course, this game is still in development. The game is pre-alpha, or as I like to call it, in-house alpha, and not accessible for public consumption. As I mentioned, there was a lot going on during the gameplay, and I want to highlight some of the more common questions people had, as well as address some of the new ones. This will be in no particular order, and will be more of an outline as best as I can remember them. The Pantheon team should have the full video up on their YouTube channel soon, and you can watch the full coverage to get all the more particular details. The game will be available for the PC at launch, then subsequently followed by a Mac version. The team mentioned that the Unity engine does provide them with a great deal of flexibility, but as of the game going on to other platforms, that's still something being discussed. The game will not be free to play, but you will be able to trial the game from levels 1 to 10. The team mentioned that they were looking at a $15 a month membership to help fund continued expansions and features for the game. I'm going to assume that there will be an additional payment method, for example, a 3-month, 6-month, and yearly fee, and whatever plans are outlined in the pledged section of the Pantheon website. So if you're thinking of getting into early alpha or other aspects of the game, be sure to stop by the pledge section by clicking on the join option, and you can see the various pledge options. As far as the game being available for alpha or beta, the team mentioned they were looking at the first quarter of next year, 2017, but they reiterated that this time frame is purely ballpark, and it will depend on where they are in the development phase because they want the game to be as playable as possible before introducing it to the public. Since our last video in June, we've learned that the team has confirmed that PvP will be an available option. However, the game is still going to be PvE centric, as they want to make this a group social experience. Crafting is still an element of the game they very much want to be viable, substantive, and enjoyable. So for us crafting fans, this is just an additional confirmation. Also for us fishing fans, the team mentioned that they would consider this as part of the secondary skill system. They did go into some additional details on how they wanted this to work, but I don't recall the specifics, so you'll want to review that for yourself in the YouTube upload. The team mentioned, as many of us knew, that the risk-reward system was still going to be a very important aspect of the game. They've not entirely worked out what the penalties will be for dying in the game, other than you'll be able to recover your experience upon looting your corpse, but as far as losing items, that's still being worked out. Plans for player travel was brought up again, and it would appear that getting around by foot will still be the primary way new players will get around the map, but they are going to have additional options for travel as we progress through the game. Some of the more common aspects of the game were discussed, and the game will still be very much like the traditional MMO we are accustomed to from EverQuest and Vanguard. So if you're new to Pantheon, this traditional gameplay theme will be carried into most aspects of the game with newer game mechanics. Now let's take a few moments to listen to some of the highlights from today's gameplay.
Here's what I think I can answer. Cohh, how close to EQ would you say this is? I miss MMOs like EQ. Now, what I'm about to say is from me explicitly. Let me just say that. This is a personal opinion.
That's the prophet.
This game, after playing this game for a little bit and getting the feel of it down, this game feels very much like what in my mind EQ2 should have been. It's basically if you take EverQuest 1 with a little bit of Vanguard and some modern day mechanics, you make it look really good and then bring that old school kind of play style that's been lost in the ages, really, into a newer generation. So in my opinion, yes, if you're an old school EQ player, this should be the game that you're looking at right now to emulate that kind of experience. But it's important to mention, it's not EQ1. This is going to be new. It's going to be, and don't get me wrong, by the way, I loved EQ2. That was my biggest rating game, and that was not by any means a rag on EQ2. I just mean in terms of the play style and what you do and how you play the game. It's much more kind of like that, yeah.
The gnome is probably one of our most significant to expect in a traditional fantasy setting. Our gnomes love, with an obsessive love, everything arcane and the pursuit of arcane knowledge. And the backstory for the gnomes is essentially they delved too deeply into that kind of arcane knowledge by finding a relic of sorts that was so powerful and so immense in its power. It was basically overwhelming, and you could say half of the gnome population, a large portion of the gnomes, were so entranced by it that they embraced it to their destruction. They would rather be consumed in the torrent of power because of their love for it than save themselves. The other portion of the gnomish population fled, but did so as everything in their world was consumed by this unearthing of this power. They did so by basically seeding their life essence or their life energy into this technological construct, which is the mask and some of the armor that you see that the gnomes have. And so the gnomes are, in that sense, ethereal, but their life energy is contained inside of these special wrappings, and mainly this mask. It's what keeps them together.
Just kind of need to move forward here. So this is going to be the perception system, which is kind of unique to Pantheon. Well, not kind of, it is unique to Pantheon. Could you
yeah, I was just about to introduce that.
Okay,
we've come into a village here, and what a lot of people are wondering about our perception system, this is our attempt to design a system that allows for rich quests and story content inside of an open, non-linear game world. We are not using quest hubs and exclamation points and mini-maps with flashing lights to create our quests and our story content. We've designed a system which takes the environment itself and makes it the quest giver in a sense. What that means practically is, as you're running throughout the game world, if you are someone who is pursuing the perception system, if you become a keeper, as we're calling it, you will be able to progress in your ability to perceive certain things in the environment around you using two skills, primarily a passive skill called Insight and an active skill called Investigate. What we're about to see here is, in the midst of Kilson's dance moves, just beyond Kilson, we're going to run down this path, and you're going to see an example where the passive Insight skill is going to alert you to something around you that you can either embrace your intuition or you can disregard it. And in this case, I'm going to ask Cohh to embrace his intuition, and we'll get to see some of the very, very early aspects of the perception system in action. So let's go ahead and run.
Embrace. My brother has wandered off again. His mind is sick. I'm afraid he's going to get hurt. I don't even know what he's wearing. He must have left early this morning or even last night. No one will help me look for him anymore. He's been wandering off for years now, ever since he lost his best friend in that cursed cave. Feels like we're being watched. Dun, dun, dun.
Awesome. So you've progressed through that dialogue. You've run along the path. You hear Anne crying. It draws your attention. You approach, and then you get a perception ping where you're able to either embrace or disregard. You embraced your perception. See, she seemed troubled. That opens up the dialogue, and now you've read through the dialogue. You've finished. You got another perception ping. Feels like we're being watched. But other than that, it leaves the player with a sense maybe of what to do next. You mentioned something about a cursed cave, so we'll need to see if we can find something like that as we keep moving forward. But that's a very simple example of the perception system at work. There was no, quest hub gathering. We're simply running around through an environment. Sometimes it may be that you see something interesting in the distance, and just by right of going there and being in proximity of a POI, you'll be able, through the perception system, to learn more about it or uncover a storyline. Sometimes NPCs will reach out to you, flag you down, or draw your attention, as we just saw. Sometimes it'll be an active thing where it's up to you really to put pieces together and use your investigate skill in certain areas to uncover the next piece of the story or of the puzzle, so to speak. So as we develop this more and more, our hope is that the power of this system, the immersiveness of this system, will become more clear.
Okay guys, that's a wrap for this latest game coverage. If you're new to the channel or a frequent visitor, be sure you're following me on Twitter, and by clicking on this watermark in the bottom right hand corner, you can subscribe to the channel. That way you'll have all the latest news and information on Pantheon.